In a world where power and prestige hang on every whispered rumor, one billionaire's love story stands out as a cautionary tale of betrayal and regret. When Sebastian Lee, a handsome magnate with more money than he could ever spend, marries the gentle yet determined Aria Greenwood, it seems like a story ripped from a fairy tale. But beneath the glossy veneers of charity galas and exquisite mansions, a single treacherous scheme threatens to destroy not only Sebastian's reputation, but also the one person who ever truly loved him. Brace yourselves for a heart-stopping saga of jealousy, conspiracy, and a desperate fight for redemption. Sebastian Lee's day always began before the sun rose over the glimmering skyscrapers of Blackwood City. At 32, he had already established himself as a force in real estate and technology, building an empire known for its innovative breakthroughs. Determined, ambitious, and notoriously guarded about his personal life, Sebastian rarely let anyone see past his carefully curated exterior. Aria Greenwood, by contrast, could not have been more different. Raised in a middle-class neighborhood, she carried an air of quiet grace that made her appear far older than her 26 years. Her gentle brown eyes reflected a warm heart and an unwavering sense of loyalty. Growing up, she'd spent her days volunteering at local shelters and studying fashion design on the side. She dreamed of making the world a more beautiful place, not just in clothing, but in her interactions with people around her. Their paths crossed through Michael Howard, an old friend of Sebastian's who ran the Howard Foundation for Children, a non-profit that Aria actively supported. One fateful charity auction had brought them together. Sebastian's stoic facade had cracked the moment he saw Aria's kindness in action, patiently helping frightened children hold a microphone and speak about their dreams. Where others jockeyed for Sebastian's attention to improve their social standing or net worth, Aria never seemed interested in the glitz. She cared about people. This authenticity was a magnet for Sebastian's guarded heart. Over the course of a whirlwind year, Sebastian wooed her quietly. Expensive gifts didn't impress Aria. Instead, thoughtful gestures, like remembering her favorite music or quietly funding the community center she loved, made her fall in love with him. Soon, they were married in a small ceremony that contrasted with Sebastian's vast financial empire. Attended by close friends and family, it was a testament to the private, sincere bond they wanted to cherish. The wedding took place on the secluded beaches of the Redwood Isles, officiated by Pastor William Jacobs, a longtime confidant of Aria's family. White roses, simple decorations, and the sound of waves crashing in the background replaced the usual pomp of high society affairs. For a man of Sebastian's wealth, it was shockingly minimalistic, yet it perfectly captured the essence of Aria's gentle spirit. She wore a delicate lace gown, her hair pinned up with small pearl clips, and walked barefoot across the sand. Sebastian, for all his sophistication, found himself trembling with emotion, thankful for the woman who had changed his life. But as the echoes of laughter and well-wishes lingered, an undercurrent of envy and hidden agendas also made its silent approach. Among the guests was Liliana Rivera, an old acquaintance of Sebastian's from his years at Cambridge University. She was beautiful, cunning, and deeply resentful that Sebastian chose Aria over her. Having grown up wealthy, Liliana felt it was her birthright to marry someone of Sebastian's status. Unbeknownst to everyone, she was already formulating a plan to tear the couple apart, and so seeds of suspicion were planted. Though Aria was oblivious to the subtle side glances, Sebastian occasionally sensed a chill emanating from Liliana. Still, swept up in the joys of newlywed life and the chaos of running a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, he overlooked her presence. Little did Sebastian and Arya know that those subtle signals were only the start of a plot so wicked it would upend their world, forcing them to confront the question, how well do you really know the one you love? Married life for Sebastian and Arya initially felt like a fairy tale, but the real world soon intruded. Sebastian's schedule was unrelenting, leaving Arya alone in their lavish penthouse for long stretches of time. She busied herself with philanthropic projects, designing clothes for underprivileged women who wanted to feel confident in job interviews, and sometimes even cooking Sebastian's favorite dishes to surprise him when he returned home late. One evening, Arya attended a high-profile fundraiser for an environmental charity. The event was hosted at the Blackwood Grand Hotel, a posh establishment known for its shimmering chandeliers and opulent decor. Sebastian was delayed by a business meeting, leaving Arya to mingle with city elites on her own. It was there she encountered Liliana Rivera again. Draped in a crimson evening gown that seemed to reflect her fiery ambition, Liliana approached Arya with a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Arya, darling," Liliana purred, pressing a champagne flute into Arya's hand. "Congratulations on your marriage. Sebastian is such a catch, isn't he?" Arya, always courteous, returned the smile. "Thank you, Liliana. It's been an incredible journey for us. He's working late, but hopefully he'll join us soon." Liliana's lips curled subtly. "Yes, always so busy. You must get lonely sometimes." Arya tried not to read too much into the tone, but felt an unsettling prickle. "We make it work." "Of course." Liliana sipped her champagne. "You must be so proud standing by his side. Running an empire is no easy feat, especially with all the vultures out there." Before Arya could fully comprehend Liliana's cryptic remark, a series of greetings and toasts distracted them. The rest of the evening proceeded as usual, but Arya couldn't shake the feeling that something about Liliana's words was a thinly veiled warning. A few days later, Arya was in Sebastian's office at the Lee Corporation building to finalize arrangements for an upcoming charity gala. The stunning glass structure towered over the city, each floor bustling with top executives and assistants. People parted like the Red Sea whenever Sebastian strode through the corridors. With Arya by his side, staff would offer shy smiles, aware that she was the rumored heart behind the stern CEO. Suddenly, Liliana appeared in the hallway, carrying a stack of documents. Arya and Sebastian exchanged glances. He had never mentioned Liliana working in the same building, let alone for the Lee Corporation. Arya's eyebrows rose in question. Sebastian cleared his throat, slightly taken aback. "Liliana, I didn't know you had business here." She smiled sweetly, an air of innocence belying her every word. "I've been consulting with your public relations team, Sebastian. Looks like we'll be seeing more of each other." Arya tried to remain cordial. "I wasn't aware you were in PR." "Oh, I dabble in many fields," Liliana said lightly. "I'm actually working closely with HR too, analyzing corporate morale. You'd be surprised how vital it is for employees to trust their leadership." Sebastian nodded, though Arya sensed a flicker of discomfort in him. "Well, I appreciate your insights," he replied, then turned to Arya. "Let's get to the meeting. We're running late." As they stepped into the elevator, Arya glanced at Sebastian. "Is everything okay?" He hesitated. "I was going to tell you. Liliana asked for a consultant role. She's well connected, and I figured it couldn't hurt to have her on board for bridging certain deals." "But you trust her?" Arya asked softly, her expression tinged with concern. He sighed. "I trust no one fully in business. but she has a proven track record. Don't worry, there's nothing to be concerned about. Arya nodded, forcing a reassuring smile. Yet that nagging sense of uncertainty persisted. Each day, Liliana's presence grew more visible, from company events to shared dinners with potential investors. Her closeness to Sebastian made Arya uneasy, despite her best efforts to dismiss her suspicions. It was only when half-truths and rumors started swirling, whispers that Sebastian's loyalty was wavering, that Arya realized how easily doubt could cast a dark shadow over love, and the seeds of suspicion Liliana had planted were poised to grow into a full-blown betrayal. Amid the city's neon skyline, a tempest of rumors began to swirl. At first, the whispers were mild, a couple of idle employees speculating about late-night meetings between Sebastian and Liliana. Then, in hushed corners of the office, it was suggested that Sebastian had promoted Liliana to a high-status position. Without the usual HR protocols, people gossiped about the special treatment she was receiving. Soon, half the executives were spinning theories about a possible affair. Arya caught wind of these rumors by sheer accident. One evening, she was in the break room, waiting for Sebastian to wrap up a conference call. Two junior associates, engrossed in their conversation, failed to notice her presence behind the tall coffee machine. "I'm telling you, something's up," the first associate whispered. "Why else would Miss Rivera get that corner office?" The second associate shrugged. "I don't know. She's rumored to be an old flame. Maybe the boss owes her a favor." Arya's heart sank. Before she could step forward or ask them to stop, the two associates recognized her and immediately turned pale. They mumbled awkward apologies and rushed out. Now alone, Arya stared at her reflection in the stainless steel pot of coffee, her mind swirling with questions. She didn't want to believe it. Sebastian wasn't that kind of man. Was he? Her internal doubts brewed. Sebastian had been distant lately, but he was under immense stress from a new tech merger. They barely saw each other outside of company functions, and even then, his attention was divided among shareholders, employees, and Liliana's sudden involvement. Arya told herself it was all business. Still, the fear lingered. Several days later, Arya attempted to confront Sebastian in the safety of their penthouse. They were seated in the spacious living room, city lights twinkling through floor-to-ceiling windows. Arya tried to calm her nerves. "Seb, I've heard some talk," she began softly, "about you and Liliana. People are insinuating—" He cut her off, exasperation clear in his voice. "Rumors, Arya. You know how it is. People gossip because they have nothing better to do. You have to trust me." A flicker of hurt passed over her features. "I do trust you, but something about Liliana unsettles me. She's too familiar." He set down his tablet on the coffee table. "Arya, Liliana was an acquaintance from my university days. We never dated. We never had that kind of relationship. She approached me for a role here, and I gave her a consultant contract. End of story." Arya bit her lip. "She seems to be everywhere I turn. And the timing, the constant rumors." He sighed heavily, fatigue etched into his sharp features. "Look, let me handle this, okay? I can't just dismiss her without cause. It would look unprofessional, and she's actually delivering on the PR side. She's helped close deals I've been chasing for months. We need her." Arya forced a small nod. She believed him. She wanted to. Yet Sebastian's insistence on keeping Liliana close felt like an emotional tightrope. One misstep could cause a catastrophic tumble. They ended the night in strained silence, each lost in their own anxious thoughts. Behind the scenes, Liliana's manipulations were far more calculated than anyone suspected. She had quietly struck up alliances with certain board members, insinuating that Arya was too naive to be a suitable partner for a titan like Sebastian. She fanned the flames of gossip by lingering around Sebastian's office after hours, just enough for passing employees to see. And each time, she wore a look of innocent confusion, as though these coincidences were out of her control. It was only a matter of time before the perfect storm struck. An upcoming Lee Corporation gala presented the ideal stage for Liliana's next move, one that would lead Sebastian and Arya down a path of betrayal they could never have foreseen, fracturing the marriage they had fought so hard to build. The Lee Corporation's annual gala was a grandiose affair that catered to the city's most influential figures: philanthropists, politicians, media moguls, and of course, Sebastian's top partners. Hosted at the luxurious Pearl Blossom Ballroom, the event dripped with opulence. Diamond chandeliers hung like stars across a velvet sky, while fluted columns framed the stage where major announcements would be made. Arya spent the afternoon preparing. She chose a midnight blue gown she had designed herself, carefully pairing it with subtle pearl earrings that Sebastian had gifted her on their last anniversary. A professional stylist pinned her chestnut hair into an elegant chignon, leaving a few soft tendrils to frame her face. Beneath the grace of her outward appearance, however, her stomach churned with nerves. Sebastian was busy finalizing his speech in a separate hotel suite. Though they exchanged text messages confirming logistics, such as the timing of his arrival and the order of the event schedule, no words of comfort passed between them. The tension from their last conversation lingered like a shadow. Neither dared to confront directly. As the ballroom filled with guests, reporters took photographs and asked pointed questions about the rumored expansions of the Lee Empire. Arya answered politely, diverting attention back to the evening's charitable focus. When Sebastian finally arrived, he was flanked by board members, including Liliana. Liliana, draped in a stunning silver gown that accentuated every angle of her figure, smiled demurely when she met Arya's gaze. "Arya, you look lovely," Liliana cooed, leaning in for an air kiss that never touched Arya's cheek. "Sebastian, you didn't tell me your wife is such an accomplished designer." A forced smile tugged at Arya's lips. "Thank you, Liliana. I'm glad you could make it tonight." Sebastian stepped between them, placing a hand at the small of Arya's back. "Let's enjoy the evening, shall we?" The gesture was meant to be reassuring, but his eyes betrayed the strain in him. Dinner commenced without incident. Sebastian delivered a speech outlining the corporation's plans to expand into sustainable technologies, an announcement met with thunderous applause. Arya felt a swell of pride, despite the doubts that gnawed at her. This was the man she loved, a visionary who wanted to make a difference. She had no intention of letting petty rumors destroy what they had built. Yet Liliana's plan was already in motion. During the post-dinner mingling, she made her move. Knowing Sebastian would be approached by countless well-wishers, Liliana orchestrated a moment to slip away unnoticed. She hurried to a secluded hallway leading to Sebastian's private lounge, a place he used to rest before major presentations. Inside, she quickly overturned a vase of roses onto the plush carpet, scattering petals in every direction. Then, with careful precision, she smeared her lipstick onto a crisp white handkerchief, leaving it on the couch. Finally, she summoned a few tears, an easy feat for someone who had practiced manipulation all her life. Stepping out into the hallway, she found the perfect bystander, a journalist named Alison Park, who was known for her sensational tabloid-style articles. "Please," Liliana whimpered, clutching the lipstick-stained handkerchief. "Don't tell anyone, but Sebastian and I—" She let the words hang in the air, as though emotionally torn about revealing a scandalous secret. Allison's eyes gleamed. "Miss Rivera, I had no idea. Are you saying you and Sebastian—" Liliana pressed the handkerchief into Allison's hands. "I can't talk about this here," she said, swallowing a sob. "But, yes, if you must know, this has been going on for some time. I feel horrible for Aria. She doesn't deserve this." With that, Liliana fled, leaving a flabbergasted Allison in the hallway. The journalist's mind raced, already crafting headlines and mental images of a scandal that would rock the high society circles. Moments later, Allison discreetly slipped into the lounge. Her gaze fell on the scattered rose petals, the lipstick-stained handkerchief, and the unmade couch, all seemingly damning evidence. By the time the gala concluded, news of Sebastian's affair was a whisper in every corner. Photographs from curious camera phones leaked onto social media, capturing Liliana rushing tearfully from the lounge. The tabloids would devour it. And thanks to Liliana's cunning, not only the public, but also Sebastian himself, would soon be caught in a trap so twisted that it threatened to destroy his marriage beyond repair. Aria awoke the morning after the gala to a barrage of messages. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Friends asking if she was all right, acquaintances expressing their shock, and countless unknown numbers seeking gossip. Confused and still groggy, she fumbled for the TV remote. The local news was a frenzy of speculation. Prominent billionaire Sebastian Lee, allegedly involved in scandal, blared across the screen. Grainy photos of Liliana fleeing the lounge at the gala were plastered everywhere. Her heart pounded in her chest as she clicked from one channel to the next, each repeating the same story. Liliana's tearful face, the arrangement of scattered roses on the floor, and the damning suggestion that an affair had been taking place under everyone's noses. The worst part was the lipstick-stained handkerchief, flaunted by all the tabloids as proof of Liliana's closeness to Sebastian. Sebastian, who had left early for a board meeting, had not yet contacted Aria. She felt her throat tighten. Despite believing in her husband's integrity, she couldn't ignore the swirl of circumstantial evidence that pointed to an ugly betrayal. Memories of their recent tensions sharpened like knives in her mind. His late hours, the distance between them, the rumors she had brushed off. Was there a possibility she'd been naive? Unable to stew in her confusion any longer, Aria headed straight for Sebastian's office downtown. The usual hustle of employees scurrying around paused as she strode through the corridors. Whispers spread in her wake. She reached his private floor, ignoring the stunned look of his personal assistant. When she entered Sebastian's office unannounced, she found him bent over his desk, brow furrowed, reading the same salacious reports that had assaulted her senses that morning. He glanced up, relief flashing in his eyes when he saw her, but the tension between them was palpable. "Aria," he began, rising from his chair, "I'm so sorry this is happening. I swear to you, none of it is true." She stepped closer, searching his expression. "I want to believe you, but the pictures, the rumors," Liliana's tears. She clasped her hands together, trying to steady her shaking voice. Why would she lie about something like this? He raked a hand through his hair. "I have no idea. She must be trying to blackmail me or something. I never—" He paused, struggling to find the right words. "Last night, after my speech, I was talking with a new investor. Liliana was nowhere near me until the final group photo." "It doesn't matter where she was," Aria said quietly. "The media already has what it needs to spin a story. They have pictures, so-called evidence. They're even implying there are personal messages between you two. Sebastian's nostrils flared. They're forged or fabricated. We need to launch a formal investigation. She's lying. Her gaze dropped to the floor. The turmoil within her was overwhelming. She trusted Sebastian, but how could he disprove illusions so convincingly orchestrated? After a tense silence, she said, "She must have planned this. But why now?" Sebastian let out a long breath, his frustration evident. "I suspect she wants my position, or at least she wants to damage my reputation enough to gain leverage. Perhaps a board seat or money. There are countless angles. But we're in this together, Arya. Please, don't doubt me." She hesitated, every fiber in her wanting to embrace him. "I believe you," she whispered, though the ache in her heart didn't subside. "But we need proof of your innocence. Otherwise, the company, our marriage, everything could fall apart." Just as they were about to strategize, a loud knock broke their moment of unity. Thomas Crane, the head of the board, entered with a grim expression. "Sebastian, the board is calling an emergency meeting. Liliana claims she's the victim of, well, let's just say she's painting a disturbing picture. We need to address this immediately." Arya's eyes widened. "She's here?" Thomas nodded solemnly. "Yes, she's in the conference room, in tears. She's saying, you forced yourself on her, threatened her job if she didn't comply. The allegations are severe, Sebastian." Rage flashed across Sebastian's face. "She's lying," he thundered. Thomas pressed his lips into a thin line. "We'll hear her side, and then we'll hear yours. But you have to understand, the entire board is reeling. They're concerned about the company's reputation and potential lawsuits. It's imperative that you and Arya come and clarify everything." Arya and Sebastian exchanged a look of dread. The carefully stacked cards of their life were tumbling down at an alarming speed, orchestrated by one woman's desperate ambition. They had no choice but to walk into the conference room, where Liliana waited, tears at the ready, and begin the grueling fight to save Sebastian's empire, and more importantly, their fragile marriage. The atmosphere in the Lee Corporation conference room was thick with tension. Stately leather chairs lined a long oval table, where the board members, women and men of considerable power, sat with grim faces. A large screen on the wall displayed news headlines from the fiasco, each more damning than the last. Liliana sat at the far end of the table, eyes red-rimmed, a crumpled tissue clutched in her hand. Dressed conservatively in a black suit, she looked every bit the wronged woman. As Sebastian and Arya entered, Liliana's expression morphed from sorrow to something more triumphant, though she tried to mask it. Thomas Crane cleared his throat, signaling for silence. "We're here to address the serious accusations raised by Miss Liliana Rivera. Sebastian, Arya, please be seated." They complied, with Arya sitting next to Sebastian. She laced her fingers through his, hoping the small gesture would give them both strength. If Liliana noticed the brief moment of solidarity, she showed no sign. Thomas continued, "Miss Rivera has presented evidence suggesting that Sebastian exploited his position of power in a sexual manner. She also claims to have messages, text and emails proving an inappropriate relationship. Sebastian, is there any truth to these claims?" Sebastian's voice was resolute. "Absolutely not. Liliana's story is a fabrication. She's orchestrating a smear campaign against me for reasons I can only guess at, perhaps to gain leverage or money." Liliana shook her head, feigning heartbreak. "You told me you'd leave her," she said softly, casting Arya a sympathetic look, "and that once I helped close your deals, We could be together. I was a fool to believe you. A few board members exchanged glances. Others shifted uncomfortably. They knew Sebastian to be a brilliant businessman, but many had witnessed Liliana's effective role in bringing new clients to the table. Could it be that her claims had a kernel of truth? Arya felt anger and humiliation boiling inside her. She turned to Liliana, her voice steady but cold. "You're lying. My husband would never betray me like this." Liliana's lip trembled. "Arya, you've always been so sweet. I'm not lying. I wish I were." A flurry of questions erupted from the board members. They demanded to see the alleged messages. Liliana produced printed screenshots, some carefully doctored with a skill that made them appear disturbingly authentic. They showed Sebastian supposedly writing, "I love you, Liliana. Please be patient while I handle Arya." Another message detailed their secret meeting times. The entire room buzzed with shock. Sebastian took one look at the pages and slammed his fist on the table. "These are forged," he said firmly. "Anyone with decent hacking skills can replicate text messages. I want a thorough IT investigation." One of the board members, Pamela Wright, spoke up. "We can certainly do that, but these allegations have gone public. The company's shares are already dropping. Clients are nervous. We need a quick resolution." Thomas nodded. "To protect the corporation, we might have to consider indefinite suspension for Sebastian until this is cleared up." "What?" Arya exclaimed. "You can't just— He built this empire." Sebastian's jaw tensed, but he kept his composure. "If that's what it takes to prove my innocence, I accept. However, I demand an immediate investigation into Liliana's digital devices, my devices, and the office servers." A small, satisfied smirk flickered across Liliana's features before she quickly resumed her sorrowful facade. "I'm not trying to destroy you, Sebastian. I just want justice for what happened." Thomas gestured to two security personnel. "Sebastian, for now, please hand over your corporate access and step down as acting CEO. We'll have to schedule an official hearing in a week's time. We'll keep this confidential, but given the media coverage, the damage is already severe." Arya's world spun. She knew how much Sebastian's company meant to him, how it had been his life's work since he was barely out of college. And now, with a few lies and forged documents, Liliana had toppled him from his throne and shoved him out the door. As Sebastian surrendered his electronic keycard and phone, Arya glared at Liliana. "You won't get away with this," she said, through clenched teeth. Liliana merely bowed her head, whispering, "I already have." That was the moment it sank in fully. Liliana had orchestrated the perfect trap, leaving them on the defensive. By the time Sebastian and Arya left the conference room, they knew that clearing his name would require more than just evidence. It would require exposing the depths of Liliana's deceit, a quest fraught with dangers that extended far beyond the boardroom walls. Leaving the Lee Corporation building, Sebastian and Arya were bombarded by paparazzi stationed outside the main entrance. Microphones and cameras thrust forward, capturing every flicker of emotion on their faces. Flashes of light disoriented them as reporters shouted, "Sebastian, did you really have an affair with your consultant? Arya, how do you feel about these accusations? Is your marriage in jeopardy?" Sebastian gripped Arya's hand and guided her to a waiting car. Their driver, Samuel, deftly navigated away from the horde and drove them to their penthouse. The tension inside the vehicle was suffocating. Once they reached home, Sebastian marched toward the large windows overlooking the city, fists clenched at his sides. Arya gently approached him. "Seb," she whispered, placing a hand on his shoulder. He flinched, eyes still burning with anger and humiliation. "Look what she's done," he muttered, scanning the skyline. "My entire career, everything I've worked for, on the verge of collapse, and it's all lies." Arya swallowed a lump in her throat. "I know. We'll find a way to prove your innocence." He turned to face her, desperation evident. "You believe me, right?" The question caught her off guard. She was hurt that he even had to ask, but she understood the depth of his fear. "Of course I do. She paused, struggling to find the right words. "I just wish there was a clearer path to prove Liliana's orchestrated this." Sebastian exhaled, raking his hand through his thick hair. "I can hire the best investigators, the best digital forensics team. I'll find a way to clear my name. But the board meeting, Thomas's reaction, Arya, they're considering removing me entirely if the scandal doesn't subside." A wave of sorrow washed over Arya. She walked to the kitchen and poured them both cups of chamomile tea, hoping the warm liquid might soothe their frayed nerves. They sat at the marble kitchen island, sipping in silence for a moment. Finally, Arya broke the hush. "We have to act quickly. The media thrives on salacious news, but it moves on just as fast once a bigger story breaks. If we can produce evidence that Liliana is fabricating everything, maybe it'll kill the story before it does permanent damage." Sebastian nodded, setting down his teacup with a decisive clink. "I'll call our head of security, Donovan Brooks. He's got connections with forensic specialists. We'll start with a thorough sweep of my devices, emails, phone logs. Then we'll see if we can get access to Liliana's personal accounts, though we'll need legal permission." Arya placed her hand over his. "I'll do my part. I have friends in the media who might run a counter-story if we can give them verifiable facts." He squeezed her hand. "Thank you." Moments later, Sebastian made the calls. Donovan arrived within an hour, accompanied by a small team of computer experts. They confiscated Sebastian's laptop, phone, and any storage devices. Arya also submitted her devices for inspection, just to eliminate any question of complicity. The penthouse turned into a mini command center, wires and monitors strewn about as the specialists worked to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, notifications continued pinging Arya's phone. Text messages of sympathy, confusion, and even condemnation. She couldn't bring herself to open social media, dreading the backlash from strangers casting judgment on her marriage. The only thing that gave her solace was the firm belief in Sebastian's innocence. But in the back of her mind, a small, traitorous whisper lingered. What if? She hated herself for even entertaining the possibility, but Liliana's scheme was so elaborate. If, by some unfathomable chance, Sebastian had strayed? No, she pushed the thought away. She knew her husband better than that, or so she desperately told herself. As the night wore on, exhaustion took hold. Arya collapsed onto the living room couch, drifting into a restless sleep filled with nightmares of flashing cameras and mocking laughter. She woke up to find Sebastian still pacing by the window, the city lights reflected in his dark, anguished eyes. Their world felt as though it was crumbling, and they stood together in the wreckage, clinging to each other and the glimmer of hope that they could still salvage the love and life they had built. In the days that followed, Sebastian's name continued to dominate media headlines. Every gossip column speculated on the alleged affair, painting Liliana as either a victim of corporate power abuse or a cunning seductress. Opinions varied, but the scandal itself refused to fade. Stock prices for Lee Corporation wobbled precariously, and talk of a leadership shakeup grew louder. The company's image, once pristine, was in tatters. Yet, amidst the chaos, Arya found a small ray of hope. One morning, she received an unexpected call from a private number. When she answered, a muffled, urgent female voice spoke. "Mrs. Lee, my name is Carmen. I work in the IT department at Lee Corporation. I think I might have something that could help clear your husband's name." Arya's pulse raced. She put the call on speaker so Sebastian could listen. "What is it?" Arya asked, voice tinged with cautious optimism. "I found some irregular data transfers around the time Liliana joined our company," Carmen explained. "There were hidden folders on the server with suspiciously altered timestamps. Someone with admin-level access was forging emails. I wanted to go to HR, but I'm scared. Liliana has a lot of influence. She threatened me once." Sebastian inhaled sharply. "Carmen, we need you to come forward. This could be our breakthrough." Carmen hesitated. "I'm worried about retaliation, but I can't stand by and let this lie destroy an innocent man. I'll help. Just, we need to be careful." They arranged a clandestine meeting at a cozy cafe on the outskirts of Blackwood City. Sebastian and Arya arrived first, sporting casual attire and sunglasses to avoid drawing attention. Carmen entered shortly after, a petite woman with large, anxious eyes. She wore a hoodie, nervously glancing over her shoulder as she approached their table. She leaned in, voice hushed. "I copied some files onto a thumb drive. I have screenshots showing Liliana's login credentials were used at odd hours, times she claimed she was at home or out of the office. But to present this data legally, we might need a subpoena or a secure way to prove its authenticity." Sebastian nodded gravely. "We have a digital forensics team working off-site. If you share those files, we can analyze them and trace the manipulation to Liliana." Carmen slid a small USB drive across the table. "Here, but this is only part of it. You'll need logs from the server's mainframe to paint the full picture." Arya placed her hand gently over Carmen's. "Thank you for risking so much. We'll protect your identity as best we can." Carmen swallowed hard. "Liliana's done more than just frame Sebastian. I suspect she's sabotaging company data for personal gain. Some confidential files have been transferred to an external server in the Cayman Islands. She might be planning to extort the company." Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "That means she's building leverage for an even bigger play, possibly blackmail or a hostile takeover attempt if the stock prices plummet and she can buy shares cheaply." Arya and Carmen exchanged concerned looks. The scale of Liliana's scheme was becoming more elaborate by the day. "We need to move fast," Arya said. "The longer we wait, the more ammunition she might gather." After the meeting, Sebastian wasted no time delivering the thumb drive to Donovan Brooks. Meanwhile, Arya reached out to a trusted reporter, Olivia Grant, a longtime journalist known for her integrity and thorough research. Arya promised Olivia an exclusive look at the unfolding scandal if she would publish the truth when it came to light. That evening, Donovan's tech team pored over Carmen's evidence. Glitches in server logs, file manipulations, and internal emails revealed a pattern. Liliana had meticulously created fake correspondence to implicate Sebastian. She used her elevated access privileges, granted only after she convinced the board she needed them to streamline PR efforts, to orchestrate the hoax. Late into the night, Sebastian, Arya, and Donovan huddled around the flickering computer screens at an off-site security firm. They watched as lines of code scrolled by, each revealing a tiny piece of Liliana's puzzle. It was like seeing the blueprint of betrayal come to life on the screen. A newfound determination radiated from Sebastian. For the first time since the scandal broke, he had tangible evidence that could shift the narrative. Arya, too, felt a surge of cautious relief. If they played their cards right, they might not only clear Sebastian's name, but also unveil Liliana's destructive ambitions. Their fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. They would have to navigate corporate politics, legal hurdles, and the ever-prying media. But at least now, they weren't battling shadows. They had a spotlight to shine on the truth. Armed with the digital proof of Liliana's manipulations, Sebastian prepared for a pivotal showdown at the upcoming board hearing. However, as the day approached, a sense of unease settled over him. Liliana was cunning. She wouldn't go down without a fight. Each piece of evidence they amassed would surely be met with a counterattack. Despite his anxiety, Sebastian felt a flicker of hope when he received a phone call from his childhood friend, Mark Redwood, an influential lawyer who had guided Sebastian through various business negotiations in the past. Mark had followed the scandal in the news and offered his legal expertise. "Seb," Mark said over the phone, "I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. It's compelling, but we must be cautious. If Liliana gets wind of our plan, she might destroy other incriminating files or twist the narrative further." Sebastian sighed. "I'm aware, but the board hearing is tomorrow. I have to face them with all the cards on the table." That evening, as Sebastian and Arya were finalizing details with Donovan, the doorbell rang at the penthouse. Arya opened it to find Liliana standing there, expression calm, yet cold as marble. "Liliana," Arya's voice wavered with surprise. "What are you doing here?" Liliana stepped inside uninvited, her gaze sweeping over the interior as though appraising it. "We need to talk, alone," she announced, directing her words at Sebastian. He crossed his arms, unwavering. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my wife." Liliana's lip twitched in distaste, but she pressed on. "I know you've got some bogus IT logs or something that you're planning to show the board tomorrow. Let me be clear. It won't matter. You'll never prove that I forged those messages. You'll never link it to me definitively." Arya bristled. "You admit you orchestrated this then?" A cold laugh escaped Liliana's lips. "Admit? Number, I'm simply acknowledging that the smear campaign you claim I'm running is untraceable. And if you're stupid enough to try, I'll go public with new, even more damaging allegations. This time, I'll say you both drugged me, forced me into compliance. The public loves a victim story, and I make a very compelling one." Sebastian's jaw tensed. "Liliana, you're playing with fire." Liliana shrugged, her eyes glinting with malice. "Maybe so, but I'm not leaving empty-handed. I want $5 million. Wire it to this account." She handed him a folded piece of paper. "And I'll retract my claims. I'll even give a press conference apologizing for the misunderstanding. You'll be free, Sebastian." Arya could hardly contain her outrage. "You're blackmailing him." Liliana smirked. "Blackmail is such a vulgar word. Let's call it a business transaction. You keep your empire, your precious reputation, and your doe-eyed wife. I walk away richer." Simple Sebastian glanced at the account details on the paper and tossed it onto the coffee table. "Not going to happen." Liliana's facade cracked slightly. "You'd really risk your marriage and your corporation going down in flames just so you can prove a point. Your pride will ruin you." Before Sebastian could respond, Arya stepped forward, her voice shaking with controlled fury. "No amount of money would fix what you've done, and we're not paying you a dime to perpetuate your lies." Liliana's eyes flickered with rage. "Have it your way," she sneered. "But I won't show mercy next time." With that, she turned on her heel and exited the penthouse, her stilettos echoing ominously against the marble floor. As the door slammed shut, The weight of Liliana's threat settled over them like a dark cloud. Arya wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She's desperate. That means we're close to exposing her. Sebastian nodded, though his brow remained furrowed. Yes, but desperation makes her dangerous. She could fabricate even more wild claims. They both knew Liliana was a formidable adversary. Yet her visit had a silver lining. She had confirmed her involvement in the sabotage, even if indirectly. That was proof enough of her desperation and guilt. Now, with the board hearing looming, Sebastian had no choice but to press forward, evidence in hand. When they rejoined Donovan in the living room, he glanced at their shaken expressions. "She came by, didn't she?" Sebastian rubbed a hand over his tense shoulders. "Yes, she threatened us again, but we're still going through with our plan." Donovan offered a reassuring nod. "Then let's finalize everything. Tomorrow, we bring this to the board." As midnight approached, they prepared meticulously. Files were duplicated and stored on multiple secure drives. Documented testimonies from Carmen and other staff members were compiled. Mark Redwood readied a legal strategy to disarm Liliana's potential counterclaims. By the end of the night, Sebastian and Arya stood on the brink of what could be the most critical turning point in their lives. They would either emerge triumphant, exposing Liliana for the fraud she was, or face the devastating possibility that her lies would overshadow their truth. Whichever way it went, the showdown would decide the fate of their marriage and Sebastian's empire. The following morning, Sebastian and Arya walked into the Lee Corporation boardroom with renewed determination. The air crackled with tension as the board members assembled. Liliana had arrived early, seated near Thomas Crane, discreet tears glistening in her eyes as she engaged in hushed conversation. Arya noticed a few board members nodding sympathetically at Liliana's every word. Once everyone settled, Thomas rapped his knuckles on the table. "We're convened today to address the findings of our investigation. Miss Rivera, Mr. Lee, this is your opportunity to present any evidence supporting your respective claims." Liliana cleared her throat first, turning her doe-eyed gaze to the assembled executives. "I stand by my story. Sebastian Lee abused his power, leading me on with promises of an executive position, forcing me into an intimate relationship under duress. I have text messages, emails, and personal accounts to prove it." Arya felt a familiar sting of anger at Liliana's audacity, but she held her composure as Mark Redwood rose to speak on Sebastian's behalf. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Redwood, legal counsel for Mr. Lee. I'd like to introduce new evidence that demonstrates Miss Rivera orchestrated a forgery of communication logs to frame my client." He paused, giving Donovan Brooks the signal to dim the lights. A projector displayed screenshots of server logs, timestamps, and IP addresses that Carmen had retrieved. Detailed flowcharts revealed how Liliana's credentials were used late at night to create fake messages and doctor certain email exchanges. A murmur rippled through the room. Sebastian took the floor, stepping into the glow of the projector. "These logs show that Liliana accessed our secure systems at times she claimed to be elsewhere. This is not circumstantial. The data points to her systematically forging messages intended to implicate me in wrongdoing." Liliana's face blanched, but she quickly mustered a facade of indignation. "This is a smear campaign. Sebastian has all the resources in the world to fabricate these so-called logs. How do we know they're authentic?" Mark Redwood calmly responded, "Our IT department cross-referenced these logs with backups on remote servers. The metadata confirms these were from your user account. We have witnesses from the IT team who were threatened by you. The tension in the boardroom soared. Pamela Wright, one of the board members, asked pointedly, "Is it true you threatened subordinates, Miss Rivera?" Liliana's eyes darted nervously. "Of course not. They're lying because Sebastian told them to." At that moment, Thomas Crane interjected, "We've also obtained copies of additional data from an anonymous source implicating you, Liliana, in attempts to siphon confidential files to an offshore account." Liliana's composure faltered. Her hands, clasped on the table, began to tremble. Desperation flickered in her gaze. "This is all a setup. Sebastian is framing me because I wouldn't keep his affair a secret." Sebastian's voice rang clear. "I have never, and would never, engage in the acts you claim. I made the mistake of trusting you as a consultant. But we have the digital footprint and witness statements to prove your allegations are false. If the board needs further evidence, my legal team is prepared to file criminal charges for fraud and extortion." Silence fell like a hammer. The board members exchanged conflicted looks. They had each played a part, unintentionally or otherwise, in allowing Liliana's rumors to spread. Now, the evidence before them was impossible to ignore. Mark Redwood handed out printed documents summarizing the forensics, along with affidavits from staff members like Carmen. Thomas, swallowing, addressed Liliana. "Miss Rivera, this is damning. Unless you have irrefutable proof to counter these documents, we have no choice but to dismiss your claims against Mr. Lee and proceed with legal action for fraud." Liliana's jaw clenched, tears slipping down her cheeks, though this time they looked more like tears of rage than sorrow. She glanced at Arya and Sebastian one last time, her expression turning venomous. Without another word, she stood abruptly and fled the room. The hush that followed was deafening. Thomas turned to Sebastian with a heavy sigh. "Sebastian, on behalf of the board, I apologize. We acted prematurely on these allegations. Effective immediately, you are reinstated as CEO. We hope you'll remain with the company, and we will support you in pursuing legal recourse against Liliana." Sebastian closed his eyes for a moment, relief mingling with exhaustion. Arya reached for his hand, her heart pounding with a sense of bittersweet triumph. Together, they had battled the storm and emerged victorious, though the damage Liliana had inflicted would not vanish overnight. When they exited the boardroom, a crowd of employees had gathered outside, eager for the result. Some clapped softly when they saw Sebastian's relieved expression. Arya felt tears prick her own eyes, realizing that for the first time in weeks, they could breathe a little easier. But as much as they had won the day, Liliana was still out there, carrying a heart full of malice and desperation. Sebastian knew they'd have to remain vigilant. For now, though, he wrapped his arm around Arya's waist, whispering, "We did it." She leaned into him, whispering back, "Yes, we did. Together." And in that moment, the fractures that had threatened to tear them apart began to mend, forming a bond stronger than ever before, a bond forged in adversity and sealed with unwavering loyalty. In the days and weeks following the board meeting, a whirlwind of legal processes took shape. Liliana's sudden departure from Lee Corporation did nothing to quell the legal repercussions she faced for attempted fraud, extortion, and unauthorized access to corporate servers. The forensic analysis, combined with testimonies from Carmen and other employees, made a solid case. Sebastian's lawyers pushed forward with civil suits to reclaim damages that Liliana's false allegations had caused the company. Public opinion gradually shifted in Sebastian's favor, though not without turbulence. A few gossip outlets tried to spin conspiracy theories that the billionaire had used his vast resources to stage a cover-up. But the authentic evidence, presented by reputable journalists like Olivia Grant, rang louder than rumor. Olivia's expose on Liliana's digital manipulations drew in millions of views online, further underlining how easily a cunning individual could orchestrate a scandal in the digital age. Aria, meanwhile, poured her energy into damage control on the philanthropic side. Several charities had hesitated to continue partnerships with Lee Corporation during the peak of the scandal. Now, with Liliana exposed, Aria reached out to those organizations personally. She gave heartfelt assurances of Sebastian's character and vision, emphasizing their mutual commitment to social betterment. Moved by her sincerity, many charities reinstated their collaborations, some even championing Sebastian as a survivor of corporate slander. Despite their success in proving Sebastian's innocence, the emotional toll remained heavy. Late one night, Aria found Sebastian in his study, sifting through wedding photos on his tablet. He stared at the joyful images, her white lace gown, his loving smile under the beach sunset, and seemed lost in thought. She quietly approached him, slipping her arms around his shoulders. "Hey," she whispered, "are you all right?" He set the tablet aside, just thinking about everything we almost lost. Aria pressed her cheek against his. "But we didn't lose it. We're still here, together." "I know," he murmured. "And it's made me realize something important. I need to be more present, not just physically, but emotionally. I let you handle so much on your own. I got caught up in deals and expansions and left you vulnerable to Liliana's manipulation." Aria kissed his temple. "We both learned lessons, but we came out stronger." Sebastian turned in his chair to face her, taking her hands in his. "I almost lost you. I never want that to happen again." The sincerity in his eyes melted away any lingering doubts Aria harbored. She knelt beside him, tears glistening. "I love you, Sebastian. We'll make it through anything. Together." Their gentle embrace signaled the start of a new chapter in their relationship, one defined by openness and mutual understanding. The trials they endured became the bedrock for an even deeper intimacy. Years later, the Redwood Foundation's annual report showcased a record-breaking philanthropic year. The newly formed Aria and Sebastian Lee Foundation had given substantial grants to small nonprofits fighting defamation and digital fraud worldwide. Carmen, now heading a cybersecurity team in California, collaborated with them, forming a global network of experts dedicated to preventing future Liliana scandals. For the rest of their days, rumors of Liliana's possible return occasionally surfaced. Some tabloids claimed sightings in exotic locales, whispering that she was plotting a grand comeback. But as time marched on, such stories receded into urban legend. If Liliana truly lurked in the shadows, her attempts never again dented the fortified truth that Sebastian and Aria now wielded like a shield. In quiet moments, the couple would recall the nightmarish months of the scandal, grateful for how it had tested and reaffirmed their devotion. They had survived the cunning schemes of one malicious woman and discovered the profound depth of trust in each other. Their story became an unofficial blueprint for many in high society. Wealth might make one a target for deception, but unwavering honesty and partnership could eventually overcome even the darkest betrayals. Sebastian, no longer a prisoner to relentless board meetings and financial charts, found joy in simpler things, like holding Aria's hand at local fairs or teaching neighborhood kids about business ethics. Aria blossomed into a global figure of grace, merging fashion with philanthropy to empower women and champion the cause of truth. Their marriage, once overshadowed by suspicious glances and scandalous headlines, now stood as a beacon of hope for those who feared that love could be easily destroyed. And so the chapter that began with a scheming girl's deliberate framing came to a close, replaced by a new chapter of redemption, transformation, and enduring love. The billionaire and his wife emerged from the crucible of betrayal, unbroken, unyielding, and utterly committed to each other. Their legacy was not just one of wealth, but one of tenacity, compassion, and proof that even in a world riddled with lies, the truth still had the power to set hearts free. The scandal that nearly toppled Sebastian's empire and tore apart his marriage ultimately unveiled a hidden strength, proving that true love, once nurtured by trust and honesty, can withstand even the most vicious lies. Liliana's twisted manipulations served as a lesson for everyone. No fortress is safe when deception coils within. But Arya's unwavering faith, combined with Sebastian's resolve to clear his name, overcame the dark forces striving to pull them apart. In sharing this incredible journey, bursting with betrayal, heartbreak, and finally redemption, my hope is that it reminds us all, even when trust is shattered and hearts are on the line, unity and perseverance can light a path to salvation. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe. Spread the message that love and truth can triumph over any scheme. Together, let's ensure that no one has to fight their battles alone. Thank you for watching.